Hey, welcome everyone. Latest report for the channel. So this is now my third attempt at recording this. So I hope it works this time. I've had some, I guess, technical difficulties getting this one organized together and out in a way that is usable. I had some static in the microphone the first time, and you could barely understand what I was saying. And then the second time, I talked through the whole thing. I didn't even record. So I think we've got it sorted. I hope we've got it sorted. And if not, then hey, you're never going to hear this and you're never going to know. So, moving on. Battle report for you coming at you now. I've had a chance to play some tournament games and hadn't been able to do any battle reports, largely because in those events there wasn't really enough time to first, I think, finish most of the games has been a big problem that the events I've been to. I'll talk more about this at the end, but basically was having trouble finishing games, and I didn't want to do like half a game report. I wanted to, get the whole game in. And a lot of the games I've been playing of late hadn't been able to finish, just because I was going to events and stuff rather than just playing fun games at home. So for this game, I got together with a buddy. Was able to actually remember to bring my camera this time, get some photos taken. So here you go. Warhammer 40K Battle Report. Death Guard versus Doomhammer Space Marines. We're playing 2,000 points. I'm playing the Space Marines. He's playing the Death Guard. And we got the mission is Cloak and Shadows. We're playing the tactical scenario Maelstrom of War mission. So the Death Guard list, he's got 2 battalions for a total of 9 command points, which seems about the right amount for 2,000 points of a Marine type army at this point. Obviously, with something like Guard or something else like that, that has lots of cheap troops, you could get a lot more command points. But it seems like the right amount for a game of this size. I have the same number of 9 command points. You can see his list on the screen there. Mortarion, I fought him before. Last time I played against him was in a tournament. I brought a sort of fun list in the sense that it was 5 greater demons. I thought it was just going to be for fun. I thought it might be kind of cool. Turned out to be as ineffective as I thought it was, especially against Mortarion, who literally killed all 5 greater demons, and he almost did it by himself. Don't get me wrong, the army helped him a little bit, but for the most part, Mortarion did all the heavy lifting. So, yeah, scary, scary model right there. He's also got this nasty Demon Prince. The Demon Prince is his warlord. It's got wings, an axe, demonic axe, and the armor relic that gives him like a ward save and rebounds saves that he makes into mortal wounds back on whoever struck him in close combat. So that's pretty scary, pretty nasty looking. He's got a Plague Caster. If I got the name wrong, I apologize. It's the Death Guard Chaos Sorcerer. He has 2 Chaos Lords. They're not Death Guard. They didn't have 5+ Feel No Pain. So I'm not sure what the reason for that is. I'm sure he has one, and if he was doing the report, he could tell you why. But anyways, they are armed with combi meltas, so that's a little bit of ranged anti-tank in his list, but other than that, he doesn't really have a whole lot of anti-tank in his list. As you can see here, he's got a whole bunch of Plague Marines with plasma guns. He's really trying to leverage that rapid-fire shooting special rule that the Plague Marines get, and he's got a couple of bloat drones with their nasty flamer weapons. So all in all, a very, we want to get up close and sort of grab you by the belt buckle kind of list. The Plague Marines, of course, can get into that medium firefight, but everybody else seems to basically want to run forward and smack in the mouth. So, interesting list. Not a lot of shooting, long range, anti-tank, and that could be a problem because I'm bringing a list that I didn't know this was what he was going to play ahead of time. We didn't talk about it. He basically just said, I've got 2 lists. One's sort of a Zinch-based list at 1,500. The other one's a 2,000-point Death Guard list. And I told him, bring whichever one you want to play. I'll bring my entire Space Marine collection. Basically fits into 2 bags. I'll bring it all with me. I've got a 1,500-point list made. I've got a 2,000-point list made. You tell me which size we're playing. I'll pull out that army. He wanted to play the 2,000-point list, so that's what we're doing. And as you can see here from my list, you can see why his lack of anti-tank might be a bit of a problem, because I brought 6 Dreadnoughts. This is my Stompy Robot Salamander Space Marine list. I've been basically playing my Marines more or less as either Salamanders or Iron Hands for a very long time. They're mainly Salamander themed once that came into being as a thing you could do in, I guess, 5th edition. Prior to that, their fluff was basically just, they take a great deal of pride in their weapons and armor, and they really like the hammer. The Thunder Hammer is the weapon of choice for anybody that can take one, is basically the sort of deal. It's their, what do you call it, status symbol, right? It's their, I'm chosen to lead, and that's why I carry the hammer, right? Hence the name, the Doomhammers, right? So anyways, so when the Salamanders came along, that just seemed to be the right fit, I guess. I toyed around with Iron Hands in last edition, 7th edition. I didn't like it as much. So I'm back to the Salamanders. It seemed incredibly effective on paper. See how it works in the game. You can see the list on the screen there. So I got the Captain with Thunderhammer and the Shield Eternal. Got a Terminator Librarian, Force Axe, Storm Shield, Null Zone, Veil of Time, 3 Scout Squads with Sniper Rifles and Camo Cloaks. So basically the idea is the Captain is going to go with the Scouts. And then you can see in the list I've got 2 Lieutenants. One of them is going to go with the Captain and the Scouts to form a core fire base that gets rerolls of 1s to hit and rerolls of 1 to wound. I plan to put the Twin Link Glass Cannon, Missile Launcher, Venerable Dreadnoughts with those that group. So that's my fire base, my long range support. And then 1 lieutenant and the 4 short range dreadnoughts, 24-inch range dreadnoughts, they go together, probably with the Tech Marine and the Librarian to form my sort of assault force. The Apothecary can go with either group as needed. Probably going to hang out though with the Scouts and the Captain in the fire base, along with the Company Ancient. I think he'll be most effective when the Scouts take hits. He'll be able to get some additional sniper shooting in response. The Stern Guard, they were sort of the last thing I put into this list, and I've debated whether to take an Ironclad or the Stern Guard in that position. I'm trying out the Stern Guard. I may oscillate back and forth between them, depending upon point size and whatever else is going on. But I like them as they can either join the fire base with their 30-inch range guns, or they can move forward with the assault force and get into rapid fire range with their 30-inch range, better bolters, and do it that way. So either way, they're an effective choice. I really like them, at least on paper. They've got good potential. The Ironclad, of course, is a purely assault unit. It has no range weapons more than 12 inches, unless you put the bolters on it. And if I owned a Storm Bolter arm for the Ironclad, I might go that route. But since I don't own it, it's purely a close combat assault vehicle for me. So why I'm choosing the Stern Guard. Okay, so hopefully that explains a little bit about the list and where I'm coming from on this, and why I like it. All right, so that's the list. Again, it's going to be an interesting matchup. You can see the board here. The things to note: so a lot of ruins. There's a couple of forests there, more or less in the center of the table to provide some area terrain benefits. The big pieces that matter for line of sight blocking are mainly going to be this clump of trees here in the middle. It's impassable and blocks line of sight. The tree growing out of the castle turret there in the center blocks line of sight and is impassable, and then you've got the bastion up at the top is the only other line of sight blocking piece of terrain, but it's so far from the center of the battlefield that it's probably not going to do much. In truth, it probably should have been more in the center of the table to really affect gameplay if you wanted to provide some line of sight blocking with it. I went more for a thematic layout with the terrain though. When I was setting it up, I didn't know which list he was bringing, and I didn't really know which list I was bringing. My 1500 point list was different from the one I've got here. Excuse me. So sort of set up a thematic. There's a bastion at the far end. There's this sort of bastion gun emplacement thing at the bottom left of the picture. So they're 2 warring factions facing off over this blasted, ruined area. Sort of idea was what was in my head. But anyways, that's the board. Since we're playing Maelstrom, they're going to be the objectives scattered around. That's going to be, of course, the focal point. Most of them ended up on the side with that sort of square-shaped ruin on the top left of the picture. Most of them ended up more towards that end of the table. For deployment, I ended up placing the last objective, and that had a big effect on where things were going. I think my opponent, he recognizing that he was not likely that he wasn't going to get to pick deployment zone, put more stuff in the center, especially with him playing the more aggressive style list and me being the more defensive one. I naturally opted to select to place objectives, understanding that I was going to get to choose table side. So we get the frontline assault, which is fine by me. You can see here, so he's proxying most of these models in the form of the Death Guard because he's looking to buy the army at some point, but he's not sure that this is the list he wants to play, and he sort of wants to collect a 2,000 point Death Guard list and just have that be his list, basically, his army that he's going to play. And he wants to make sure that he likes the setup before he buys them, which is understandable. So for the time being, at least in this game, he's proxying using a lot of his 1,000 Suns that he already owns. So you can see here, basically what he's done is he's got 3 groups of 2 Death Guard units with 1 character, either a Chaos Lord or a Demon Prince, that allows him to reroll 1s for his shooting, which makes perfect sense to me. I understand that. And then the 2 Bloat Drones, the Caster and Mortarion, sort of go wherever they're best suited, best needed. I think is basically his approach to this. Given that it's Maelstrom and there's effectively 2 objectives on either flank and 2 in the center, as you know, with most 6 objective scenarios, he's basically got a left flank unit, a right flank unit, and a center unit that consists of 2 Death Guard and 1 character, and then like I said, Mortarion and the other guys are going to probably try to drive forward and charge into my lines and cause havoc, which seems like a reasonable strategy. And this is the rest of his line. Again, you can see the others, 2 Death Guard unit with the character, the Chaos Lord in the center there. They're in Terminator. He's using Terminator armor models, but they're not in Terminator armor. Let's put it that way. And then over here on my right flank, his left flank for the game, he's got his Demon Prince with wings in those 2 squads. This is my right flank facing off against the Demon Prince. I dropped the Stern Guard here into the crater. Ultimately, wasn't really sure what else to do with him. My idea in my head of the deployment and the groups didn't work out the way I had planned or hoped, largely because of the Maelstrom. So if it's affecting his deployment and the way he's wanting to use his army, it's also affecting my deployment the way I want to use my army. So it's working, I don't know, in whose favor at this point. Maybe no one's. Probably mine, though, to be quite honest, the way the basic board is set up for me. You see 2 of my Dreadnoughts there. The multi-melted Dreadnought got separated from the others, again, largely because when he was finished deploying, I still had some things to set down, or he deployed enough stuff at this point that I realized I needed the multi-melted Dreadnought over here, hopefully to either deal with Mortarion or that Demon Prince or something. So that's why it got separated from its other 3 assault cannon buddies. Center fire base. I would expect this to be more or less the preferred setup. Scout squads clustered around the lieutenant, the chapter master, not chapter master, sorry. He used to be my chapter master. Now he's just a captain. My captain in there, he's in the center with a big base, Tech Marine on the right. And honestly, that Tech Marine, I wasn't sure where to put him at this point. I figured this would be the area where Mortarion was probably going to do a lot of damage. I'm hoping to keep a Dreadnought or 2 alive by keeping him close and in position to help out. But I don't know that I used him as well as I should have in the game. You'll see how that plays out. Ancient with the banner. Apothecary obviously is the guy in white. And then my Librarian is tucked up underneath the corner there. And he's in a decent enough position. My problem, though, is that I got to remember where all these guys are. I'm not used to having so many characters and having so many different units. I like having a lot of units, generally speaking. But this is something new for me. So, yeah. And then this is the left flank. So this part, basically, I stuck with, the Dreadnoughts with the assault cannons and a lieutenant. So since they're all venerable, they're going to be hitting on 2s and, getting their rerolls of 1 reroll of a 1 for being Salamander. And then they're going to wound generally on 3s. They'll get to reroll all the 1s because of the lieutenant, and then any single 2 will be able to be rerolled. So a decent fire base, fire support. I'm liking the way this is setting up. Obviously, I got to worry about the 18-inch range for the scenario. It does factor into some of our decisions, I think, for better or for worse. He chose to go first. He finished deploying long before I did, and I didn't even. I did not opt to try to steal. I didn't even roll the die. I didn't want first turn. I wanted him to go first, and my thinking on this was the way it is right now. I don't think he can really do that much to shoot at me. I'm mostly more than 24 inches away, and even more than that really on the flanks because the way the deployment arcs back, and I did not push up as far forward as I could on my deployment. So I'm thinking even if he moves up 5 inches, Death Guard are pretty slow, relatively speaking. He's not going to be that effective at shooting at me. So ultimately, I figured let him go first, let him spend a turn coming at me, and then we'll shoot back at him. Mortarion, of course, is the worry, and at this point I think he was enough out of line of sight I couldn't shoot at him anyway, so let's not waste a turn shooting at stuff that doesn't matter. And yeah, so he does exactly that. He pushes up over here on his right, runs, and he basically just runs his entire army. So these guys all run forward. These guys all move forward, advancing as fast as they can. You can see Mortarion has popped up here on top of this terrain piece, well within range of my guys. He's within the 18 inches now, so I'm going to have to move to try to shoot at him. These guys all run forward as fast as they can. They didn't roll quite as well as some of the other units. And same over here, these guys didn't roll as well. And the Demon Prince, of course, doesn't want to step out and get shot. So he's kind of hanging with his guys. Although, with Mortarion where he is, he probably could have shoved this Demon Prince forward harder, faster. And it would not have been as much of a problem. Because I don't know that I would shoot at the Demon Prince with Mortarion breathing down my neck. Maybe I would have, I don't know. Mortarion tries to cast the -1 to hit Miasma, if I'm remembering that one rightly, get the name right. -1 to hit him. He rolled a 3 and a 1, re-rolled the 1 into another 1, so the spell, whatever, the psychic power failed. He then tried to smite, and my Librarian stopped that, so Mortarion didn't really do anything this turn. So that said, he discarded tactical objective, secure objective number 2. That's the one that my Stern Guard are sitting on top of. So he basically decided, yeah, I'm not going to get that anytime soon. So he just threw that one away. But he did score advance, which is get everybody out of his deployment zone. He did that easily with everybody running forward. And he got secure objective 5. Objective 5 is the one that's in the middle of the table. It's basically sitting right underneath where Mortarion is standing. I'm pretty sure he picked that one up with a bloat drone. So he picked that one up. So it's 2 points for him. And we're moving on to Doomhammer turn 1. Over here, so the 2 dreadnoughts on the ends of this setup were in range of things. The dreadnought on the left, if it moved to get in with 18 inches of the Death Guard in front of it, it would still be at -1 for move with a heavy weapon. It could sit there and not move and take the penalty for being more than 18 inches. Either way, it didn't matter. So I said, fine. That one can stay put. The one on the right was within 18 inches of Mortarion and had line of sight to him, so I said, great, we'll leave that one exactly where it is. It'll shoot at Mortarion if Mortarion's still alive when the time comes. Otherwise, it can shoot at the Death Guard. That's fine. The guy in the middle, I moved to try to get him a line of sight and in range of Mortarion because I don't think he could see from where he was. And when I moved him behind that large impassable terrain piece. And it turned out to be an even worse position because he still couldn't see anything, and on top of that had moved and wasn't in 18-inch range of anything. Yeah. I'm doing great, let me tell you. Yeah. And it only gets better, right? The stupidity just continues because for some reason I decided to move these guys. I did manage to, I think, to move them all within 18-inch range of Mortarion, and I think that's what I was trying to do. Is like, I don't want to get the -1 to hit, so I'll move forward. I think only one of them was in rapid fire range, though, so they were like that perfectly bad distance of they moved up, and so left the cover, and are now closer to all that Death Guard shooting and all those plasma guns. And they're not really getting the benefits of being close enough to rapid fire Mortarion. Whereas if they just stayed put, yeah, they'd be a -1 to hit, but they'd get the cover save, and I wouldn't be losing out on that many more shots anyways. Yeah. Another terrible move, and in this situation, represented by presumably some of the most experienced fighters in my chapter, saying, hey, let's abandon this defensible crater position guarding this possibly potential spot on the battlefield and go run out into the open. That seems like a great idea. And everyone's saying, yes, let's all follow you, Sarge. Great job. You're an amazing leader. Oy. But things work out well for me, despite my numerous mistakes, and only because my opponent was an incredibly generous sport about all of this. We got to joking around about the stern guard, and we were having a good time and laughing and whatever, and I got distracted by that and wasn't paying attention and forgot to move my librarian. And my librarian's whole purpose in life here was to run out, try to cast his psychic power, the Null Zone, and stop Mortarion from getting his 4+ invul. And he was obviously close enough that with an advanced move, he could do it without really any difficulty. And I even would have used a reroll to make sure he got within the 6 inches. And we were joking around, and I forgot. And I'd literally fired like 2 things into my shooting phase when I was like, why are you getting this 4+ info? You shouldn't have that. And then I went, oh, that's why. Because I'm an idiot and forgot to move my librarian. And my opponent, he was incredibly gracious about this and let me basically go back effectively to my movement phase. And at that point, I realized, oh man, I totally forgot my psychic. Oh, I forgot my psychic. That's why I forgot my psychic phase and everything else. And he was like, yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's a friendly game. Don't worry about it. Then he let me go back and move my guy, take my psychic phase. I was able to roll a 10 for the Null Zone, which he couldn't stop. I failed the smite on Mortarion, so didn't get that off, but obviously not going to complain about that. And it's really only because he was so generous about this that I was able to take Mortarion down in my shooting phase, because up until that point, I think I'd fired both of my laser cannons and both of my missile launchers, and Mortarion had maybe taken like a wound. Because he was just making 4-ups left and right. He made all of his 4-ups, it seemed, against my big heavy weapons that I really needed to damage this guy. Once the Null Zone retcon happened, when I went to shoot at him then, now he's taking armor save, so he needs like, a 5+ or a 6+ against most of my guns, and he just can't make anything. And on top of that, I go to roll the d6 damage, and I'm rolling nothing but like 5s and 6s for all the multi-wounds. And it was kind of funny, because when we redid it, the first thing I shot at him, I shot this twin las cannon at him, whatever, and hit and ultimately wounded, I think, with one of them. Either he made an armor save or I didn't wound with it. Either way, one of them went through. I rolled a 5 for the damage, and then he made 4 out of 5 feel no pains. And I was like, well, let's see, just do that every time, and it won't matter. Of course, he couldn't keep that up, even though he was rolling pretty well. Those Nurgle dice, he's got those fancy Nurgle dice that GW made. Those things sometimes they seem to roll pretty hot sometimes for him. So I'm not saying they're loaded or anything. I'm just saying that they seem to like his army. There's something to be said for matching your dice to your army. So anyways, Mortarion goes down. I take a wound, I think, when he exploded or died, whatever. There's, he's got that death throes thing or whatever, I guess. So I took a mortal wound on my librarian, or something like that. Anyways, totally worth the cost. I'm probably going to lose my librarian next turn, but Mortarion's down. That's basically a quarter of his army gone turn 1, and means that from here on out, it's basically a 1,500 point army fighting a 2,000 point army, which is just a very nasty uphill battle for anyone. I think this is the payout of the Stern Guard now, who could have shot at these guys anyways from where they were and done just as much damage. Yeah, just totally misplayed them this whole game. But hopefully that won't last for very long, because all of these nasty Nurgle Plague Marines and that Demon Prince are probably going to smite down, get rid of the Stern Guard next turn anyways, their plasma guns and psychic powers. With Mortarion gone, I have some options. I chose to shoot at these guys. I think at the way things were positioned, I couldn't quite see the Demon Prince. Maybe I didn't even look at him. I just said, so let's go ahead and try to kill these characters here in the middle. Put a couple of wounds on each, 1 or 2 wounds on each, so not bad overall. The assault cannons mostly were able to kill this squad over here down to 1 guy, so working pretty well for me overall. And we go to the scoring round. I pick up all 3 of my tactical objectives. I had secure objective 6, which is the one that's basically right in the middle of my ruined fire base. The big game hunter killed Mortarion, so that was picked up there. No prisoners, I got that one as well. Excuse me. And I scored first blood because obviously killing Mortarion, he was the first thing to die. So big 4 points that round. So my opponent's turn 2, and again, he's put himself in a tough position by being a generous sporting player, which I appreciate. Let's see here. Moves up here, not as fast. Again, I think now he's in range with his 18-inch guns to shoot at the Stern Guard and to cast psychic powers with his Demon Prince. So, gonna hold back and leverage his shooting attacks against me. Same here, pushes up again, doesn't push up as hard, only moves up to 5 inches, so he's now within range of his shooting attacks. And over here, shuffles around to claim an objective and get some guys in range to shoot. Sorry for the blurry pick, but he moves up here in the middle. So he's going to shoot down the Librarian with a combination of Bloat Drone fire and Bolter fire. Yeah, there you go. Librarian dies. He almost killed him with the Bloat Drone on the left. He wasn't going to fire that one initially. He was going to start with the one on the right. And I was like, why don't you shoot the one on the left first? I mean, you might kill him. And he kind of gave me a dirty sideways look like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. And then he rolled a 3 for the number of hits. And I was like, hey, he's only got 3 wounds left. You can still pull it off. And 2 of them got through. So with 3 hits, he did 2 wounds to the Librarian. I was like, see, there you go. You almost killed him. And then he shot him down with Bolter fire. So the Librarian died, but I can't complain, obviously. He more than made up for it by helping take down Mortarion. So that Bloat Drone on the right shot and killed a couple of scouts, if I remember rightly, with its flamer weapons, and it's going to charge into the laser cannon missile launcher dreadnought on the right side of my line by the multi-melted dread. These guys honor the Emperor with their sacrifice. Yeah, I think he used Smite to kill two of them, and then combination of Plasma Fire and Bolter Fire from the squad killed the rest. I rolled pretty terribly for the Bolter Fire, but even still, they were, totally misplayed this unit, totally misused them. It's no more than I deserve under the circumstances, or no less than I deserve. Whatever. They're dead. Get them out of here. The Bloat Drone charges in, and I was expecting him to charge the other one at my dreadnoughts on the other side, since I couldn't see it. I couldn't overwatch at it, so I figured he'd try to charge it in, and he didn't, and then immediately tried to pile in here. I was like, whoa, hold on a sec. I understand you want to get my dreadnought with the fist in, so I can't use it to shoot at you, but I get to heroically intervene before you do your pile in. And I had to heroically intervene with the Tech Marine because he was kind of in the way, and the captain couldn't get through otherwise. And admittedly, if I'd moved the Tech Marine in my last turn, I could have moved him over to the right and positioned him kind of behind these dreadnoughts, so he'd have been in a position to repair them if they took damage, which would have been the smart thing to do. But I think we've already established, at least in this game, I am not playing the game like a smart person. I am not being a smart player. So far, I'm getting lucky and sometimes I guess it's just better to be lucky than good. The payout here, he does a couple of wounds to the missile launcher, las cannon, dreadnought. I do 5 wounds or 7 wounds to him overall between either Overwatch and close combat attacks. Thunderhammer only hit with about half because I'm pretty sure he cast Miasma on this guy before he came charging in. So I'm not hitting as well as I would have otherwise, but ultimately managed to do some decent damage with the Thunderhammer. So this is just sort of an overview of where his guys are. He's going to claim objective 4. You can see him here in the middle. He failed to charge with this guy in the middle. He did ultimately go back and try to charge with that blow drone and just failed it. And these are guys over here on the right that killed the stern guard. And you can see here basically the center of my line. This is most of my army. The only thing that's not in the range in the picture here is a dreadnought off to the left. So this is basically what I've got left on the board. At this point, he picks up all 3 of his tactical objectives. He got Witch Hunter for killing my Librarian. He got Secure Objective 1, which is backed by the Pine Trees, and he got Secure Objective 4. So, pretty good turn. We move on to turn 2 for the Doomhammers. My Apothecary is able to resurrect a single scout. That's the pink heart there. I don't know why I didn't get a picture of the scout being rezzed afterwards, but there you go. Otherwise, no real movement. I'm holding the multi-melted dread in reserve. I might charge it in if I need to. But I have reason to not charge it in. Actually, when I get to the charge phase and I'm looking at it, I actually think that it's better not to charge with the dreadnought. I'll explain why when I get to the end of the turn. Over here, I take this dreadnought that advanced forward and I move it up and around behind the the impassable piece of terrain here, because my thought is I'm going to shoot at that bloat drone and then assault it if I can. So that's what I do. I put a few wounds on it, I think, with shooting, and then I assault it. He does, I think, 2 wounds to me through the Overwatch, but I rolled a boxcar for my assault move, so instead of moving just straight in, I actually moved up and around, kind of behind it. And then consolidated in such a way that I was bringing the Death Guard there on the right into the fight. In combat, I activated the Dreadnought first, killed the bloat drone. He didn't do anything back to me. The Dreadnought, I believe, is going to have 5 wounds left when the fight's over and done with, so not bad, ultimately. And over here, yeah, so this is another one of those comical moments. The Tech Marine and the Dreadnought that's in the fight with the bloat drone, I think they did 1 wound total. So it's got 2 wounds remaining, and my captain's all, I'm going to, smite you for the glory of myself, the chapter, for the Emperor, yada, yada. And then he killed it. My opponent spent a command point to make the bloat drone explode automatically. And of course, where it's located, it does damage to this entire part of my arm. You can see all the things that are hit by it that all take a mortal wound. So I like to think of him as going, ha ha, is everyone okay? Everyone's fine, right? Okay, all right. But yeah, ultimately though, this is a really great thing for me, even though I take all these mortal wounds, because one of the objectives I drew was priority orders received, and I drew no mercy, no respite. So my captain had to kill something, finish it off with either shooting or close combat, which he was able to do by killing the bloat drone. So I scored 4 victory points for achieving that one objective. So it was 5-4. Now it's 8-5 in my favor. Secure objective 1, I discard because that's, again, on the other side of the board by his pine trees. I'm never going to get there. So we chucked that one in the bin. I do have, I believe my 3rd objective at this point was area denial, which he still got units within 6 inches of the center of the board, so I can't claim it. So we move on to turn 3 for the Death Guard. These guys that I consolidated into say, yep, we're not going to stand here like a bunch of idiots and get killed, so they heroically withdraw from the combat, recognizing that it's better to shoot this dreadnought down with plasma than to stand there like a bunch of morons and get killed. The rest of his guys shuffle around a little bit. He mainly is going to rely on that Melta gun on that Chaos Lord and the Combi Melta. And that, let's face it, should do most of the heavy lifting, but if it doesn't, he's still got plenty of plasma guns, and if he's also got the smite on the Librarian. He did smite me. I think when he did, I threw down, I spent a command point to throw down Armor of Contempt, which lets me ignore the wound on a 5 or a 6 instead of just the 6 for being a Venerable. I then immediately proceeded to roll a 6 and was like, oh great, I wasted the command point. Awesome. But yeah, these things happen. Over here he pushes up to try to claim objective number 3. And this guy leaves objective 4 for some reason. I'm guessing he's moving him up to try to get him within rapid fire range of that plasma gun he's carrying. Yeah, if you're wondering about the dice, all the dice basically just represent guys that have plasma guns. Sorry if I didn't explain that sooner, but that's part of the proxy. So if you're wondering what all the dice are on the table, that's what they're for. Over here, the Demon Prince is going to stay close enough to give the rerolls, but move far enough forward that it is going to shorten its assault range. He's coming for those 2 dreadnoughts on the far right flank. In shooting and shooting and psychic phase, I don't think he did any damage in the psychic phase again. I think I was able to shrug that off, but he gets me down to 1 wound, I think, with the Melta, and then basically says, well, I don't need to overcharge the plasma guns because he's only got 1 wound left. And he goes to shoot, and because he didn't overcharge the plasma guns, he was only strength 7. When he goes to roll to wound, he rolled 2 3s. And at that point, it was sort of like, that's awful. And admittedly, if he sort of said something about it, like, not realizing or forgetting about it, I probably would, given what he did with Mortarion, I would have let him re-roll it. Let him overcharge him and re-roll the whole thing. But he basically said, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. So we moved on. So his 2 characters tried to charge him to finish off the Dreadnought. Admittedly, when he did it, I was kind of like, okay. I mean, I understand you want it dead, but, did these guys really stand a chance? And the reason this happened was he did make the charge with the Demon Prince on the right flank into my 2 Dreadnoughts. And I'll show you how that worked out in a moment. He was looking at it, he was like, either way you're going to interrupt. And he chose to go with the Demon Prince first, which on some level I guess makes sense. But I can only interrupt with 1 option on that flank. And where he was positioned, I was able to heroically intervene, so I could basically attack with the Captain or a Dreadnought. But odds are not great that either one of those models is going to kill the Demon Prince. It's possible, I admit, but not great. But when he swung with the Demon Prince first, that basically guaranteed that I was going to interrupt here, because I still, at this point, I still have like 6 command points left. So there would be no reason not to interrupt with this Dreadnought and go ahead and take his 4 attacks, put 2 on each. That's exactly what I did. Between the fact that he's hitting on 2+, right, because he's Venerable, and I get to reroll 1 miss to hit, and I get to reroll 1 miss to wound. Odds were always good that I was going to kill these guys, which he did. So that unfortunately did not work out for my opponent. But over here, things worked out pretty well. He charged in, and again, the way I positioned my guys after the when they fell back, or not when they fell back, when I defeated the bloat drone, I couldn't really move them that much because of where his guys were. So I was still sort of wedged in next to the Dreadnought, and in order to intervene with my captain, I had to once again intervene with the Tech Marine. That just screwed myself from the beginning with that guy, but whatever. It's hopefully I'll learn something from this. That Prince, though, he comes in, and I actually hit him a couple of times with Overwatch from the las cannon and the missile launcher. I think I hit him both with a las cannon and a crack missile, shockingly. Or I hit him with a las cannon and a multi-melta. Either way, he managed to only take 4 wounds total in all of the fighting. That's with a couple of anti-tank guns. He did not kill the Death Fist in close combat. He did manage to kill the dreadnought with the las cannon missile launcher. It had already had a couple of wounds taken off, so he managed to kill it. But the dreadnought on the right with the death fist, it managed to live with 1 wound left. And so this is of course the funny part, because then I activate the different units. I go to attack. When that dreadnought activated to attack the Demon Prince, one of the hits got saved by his magic armor relic that he has, and it rebounded a mortal wound back into my dreadnought. I don't remember if I used the Armor of Contempt or not. If either way, it failed, and the dreadnought died from that mortal wound. So, yeah, this Demon Prince is scary hard, man. This loadout that he's got on this guy, frightening. My characters looking at this guy, they're not going to be able to win this fight. So yeah, Holy Emperor, this thing is scary. So let's not fight in close combat. My opponent is able to pick up Objective 3 secured. Makes sense why he moved forward into those woods, and No Mercy, No Respite. So now when he revealed that, it then made sense to me why he was so dead set on trying to kill that dreadnought in the middle of the table, because he was reasonably certain, reasonably comfortable that his Demon Prince was, once it made the charge, was likely going to kill those 2 dreadnoughts. I mean, the odds weren't exactly guaranteed. Of course, you could always have terrible dice, and I could maybe get lucky. But point is, there was a reasonable chance that he could kill both those dreadnoughts. So if he could kill that 3rd one, he'd pick up D3 victory points instead of just 1. So I understand now, once he revealed the card, why he did it. Unfortunately, only gets the 1 point for it. So it's 8-6 in favor of the Doomhammers, and this is an overview of the board. You can see his left flank opposite my couple of dreadnoughts. Yeah, they're trying to secure that thing in the woods. We need to stop them. They're trying to pick it up. We need to kill them. Over here, yeah, you can see my ever dwindling right flank. He's now getting closer and closer to my fire base here. And the center of the board. And his right flank, my right flank, his left flank, which he basically owns now, thanks to that Demon Prince clearing out all my guys and his guys shooting down my stern guard. So yeah, we move on to turn 3 for the Doomhammers. Yeah, this thing is way too powerful. Let us, having heroically intervened, heroically retreat. So that's what they do. And yeah, I think the las cannon missile launcher gets him down to 1 wound, and then I can't remember if I killed him with a bolter from the lieutenant or just what. But anyways, whatever it was, we're able to finally kill the Demon Prince with shooting, so that was very, very handy. Thank you very much. Good shooting, guys. I think I shot this dreadnought at one of the guys behind the terrain on the other side of this ruin, because I've got area denial, and I realize now I've cleared out 6-inch bubble. But if I want the D3, I got to clear out the 12-inch bubble. So I fire the guns at those guys at the back. I don't kill them. So I go ahead and assault these guys here just to get them off the table, kill them in close combat without any trouble. I consolidate the dreadnought underneath the ruin there, because I'm thinking, I'll just put him behind these walls here, and he'll be out of line of sight. He won't be able to shoot me, and I'll be able to move the Tech Marine in and heal him up. I move, since the Tech Marine fell back, I don't remember if he can use his ability or not. At least when we were playing the game, I didn't think about it. I didn't think he could because he fell back from combat. But I might have that wrong, and if I do have that wrong, I probably should have moved the dreadnought instead of firing it. Obviously, hindsight 2020, couldn't know that was the case. But still, long run, it's probably better to move the dreadnought to the Tech Marine and have the Tech Marine repair the dreadnought than to do what I did and have the dreadnought be sitting there on 1 wound. So yeah, there you can see. And so this is sort of my angle looking at it when I moved it. I was like, all right, I got this nice, reasonably solid wall. There's this little window over here, so I want to try to limit as much as can maybe see him through that. But otherwise, yeah, we'll just sort of tuck him up under here. Good and safe. You see the rest of my fire base back here. And over here, these two guys and the lieutenant are able to kill this entire squad in the woods. The last guy actually failed his morale check, and we like sort of forgot to take the morale check until we got to the objective scoring phase, and at that point we remembered it, and he rolled a 6, and the one guy that was remaining failed it and ran off the board. And that was ultimately pretty huge because I had psychological warfare. So because of that guy's failed morale check, I got that objective. I killed his demon prince, who was a psyker, so I got witch hunter. And again, I picked up area denial. I didn't get the full. I didn't get to roll the D3, so I didn't get the bonus points for that. But again, that's 3 tactical objectives scored, and I killed his warlord. That's another victory point. So right now it's 12-6. It's swinging the Doomhammer's way pretty heavily and getting away from the Death Guard. So we move on to Death Guard turn 4. They're definitely pushing towards objective 3, so there's something going on there. He got secure objective 3. He probably has some kind of defend objective 3 or something going on. They really want that thing. We have to take it from them. We can't let them have it. Over here, yeah, why are there stars on these guys? Well, as you can see here, this is the corner of the building I thought my dreadnought was safely hiding behind. And you can see why that was not a good idea, why that was incredibly dumb, because you can obviously see right through it. And from where I was standing, I couldn't see the corner, and I wasn't paying careful enough attention. I wasn't looking, and yeah. So my dreadnought got what he deserved. He got shot with plasma. He died. But I rolled the 6, and he blew up. So, I was able to put a couple of mortal wounds. I think I killed one guy from one squad and one guy from another squad. So, yeah, that's something. But alas, no more Venerable Dreadnought. And no more Tech Marine. Because, of course, my Tech Marine was within 6 inches of the Dreadnought when it exploded. And I let my opponent, I said, yeah, go ahead and roll the mortal wounds for my Tech Marine. And of course, he rolled the 5 or a 6 he needed. And my Tech Marine died in the explosion. So, I guess in the long run, the bloat drone sacrifice paid off because it picked him up a Tech Marine. And yeah, maybe if we weren't playing tactical objectives, Maelstrom mission, those things might matter. Or if he had some sort of, objective, that might make a difference. But it looks like mainly he's trying to get objective 2 and objective 3 here. So he advances, doesn't even take a shooting. He runs onto this objective. So it's telling me I got to try to shoot these guys off of objective 2, and I need to use my dreadnoughts on the other side to get them off objective 3. So this is basically what I have to try to kill those 5 Death Guard. It's doable. At the end of Death Guard turn 4, he didn't claim any tactical objectives. Whatever they were, he didn't get them. I think he discarded one of them. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it seems pretty likely that whatever he's holding on to involve the objectives he's sitting on. So we go to Doomhammer turn 4. I think I failed to resurrect a guy, so that's all this is showing. These guys aren't really close to anything, so really no point in trying to shoot at them. I am able to shoot this unit down to one guy, but he passes his morale check in the end. And it was one of those things where I think at this point I have 3 command points left, and I was debating. I think the only thing I had left that could maybe do anything was my captain hadn't moved. And I was thinking about, okay, do I spend the 3 command points to call in an orbital strike on this one Death Guard? If I roll the 4 up and I can roll a decent number of wounds, he might die. All right. But in the end, I said, nah, it would be kind of hilarious if it worked. But, it's 3 command points. I'd have to roll 4+, and then... Yeah. So, and it was at this point that I sort of was looking, I was like, man, I absolutely should have used that earlier in the battle. When he had all those guys all clustered together in the center of the board, the characters, and admittedly, you only hit characters on a 5+, but when he had all those guys grouped together, that might have been a good time to use that stratagem. But, oh well. Over here, it all worked out in our favor. One dreadnought shot down the lone Death Guard The other dreadnought shot down the captain, and the guy on the left is easily within 3 inches of the center of that objective. So not only did I kill his models so he can't claim the objective, but now I'm claiming objective 3. And that was actually a big thing points-wise, because he is able to score defend objective 2 because he's held it for 2 turns. He would have scored defend objective 3 if I hadn't cleared him off of it. And I drew the mission critical objective and was able to roll a 3 for that mission critical objective. And so, because he had claimed it, not only did I get the mission critical objective, but I was able to get D3 victory points for taking it from him. I rolled a 1 the first time because I hadn't used my command points. I had 3 of them to spare. I said, sure, I'll re-roll it. I re-rolled the 1 into a 3, effectively. I also picked up Hold the Line because I have a couple, like three scout squads, a bunch of characters, a dreadnought in my deployment zone in my fire base. They've not moved the whole game, really. So, picked that one up, no problem. Total right now 16-8, and it's at this point that my opponent basically sort of looks at the board and goes, "Yeah, it's been a great game. It's been fun. Obviously, you've won this. I've got 5 guys left on the board is basically what he's got left. So we called the game there. So I was Doomhammer victory, a good example of better to be lucky than good sometimes. Again, I made tons of mistakes in this game. And that's just one of the things about Maelstrom. If you draw the right objectives, you get lucky with the cards. Even, people who play as poorly as I did at times in this game can get what are fairly impressive victories. So, if you're into the more chess dynamic or chess with dice dynamic of Warhammer, where it's more about the tactics and the strategy and less about the luck, okay, understand why Maelstrom might be a problem for you. I found this game was a lot of fun, and I got some things I want to talk about in the future about the game and just 8th edition in general. So we'll go to the next slide for that. So some of the thoughts here, right? The games, to me, and maybe this is your experience too, just seem to be taking longer, even though the rules have been streamlined. It feels like I'm not finishing games in the same amount of time. It seems like they're taking much longer. As I said at the outset, right, I've been playing in tournaments and in events that I've been playing in the past, right, in 6th edition, 7th edition, 5th edition, etc. A 1,500 point game, 2 hours, you can play that no problem. And we've been playing like 1,500 point tournaments and have barely been able to get through 3 turns. Admittedly, I'm in a new area with different players, so that might have something to do with it. Maybe they're just slower players in general, but it feels to me like when I do play full games with people, even if I'm just focused on the game, it still takes longer. And I'll admit, more and more recently, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment, more and more recently, I've sort of been not really focused on the game and enjoying more of the fun story aspects of the hobby. But when I have been trying to focus on the game and play quickly, I've still had a hard time finishing games in the same amount of time. And I mentioned this to my opponent, Braden, when we finished our game, and he was like, well, the big thing is rerolls. There's so many more rerolls. So you're rolling so many more dice. So even though it doesn't feel like you're doing more rolling in the sense that you don't have any more units, maybe, or you're not necessarily rolling more dice, although admittedly some people are rolling a lot more dice, and that may have it takes a lot of time to sort through 60 dice and pick out the hits and misses. So maybe that's having a big impact on it, and then re-roll them on top of that. Okay, yeah, he's probably onto something ultimately if that's the case. So any thoughts on that? Is this common? And I guess what I'm asking is, do we need to change our expectations for how long the game is going to be taking? I'll say this much. When I have finished a game and it's taken 4 hours, at least with the people I've been playing with recently, the games I've been having, it hasn't felt like that amount of time. Like what I'm trying to say is I haven't turned around and said, oh my goodness, thank goodness that's over, because that felt like forever. It's been, oh my goodness, I can't believe that was 4 hours. It didn't feel like 4 hours. So I guess I'm saying I'm having a lot more fun with the game uh, than I maybe expected or I'm used to, despite the length of time. So I'm just again just checking to see if this is universal, if other people are having the same experience, or this is something unique that I'm going through. Um, Wanted to say a quick comment about the win big lose big models. I think in this game, obviously, the loss of the Primarch turn one was huge. Um, and these are the kind of models that are win big, lose big, in the sense that they can change a game if they survive, and they can change the game when they die. Few things have that, but there's just so many of these now in terms of options, whether it's Primarchs or the Knights or super heavies of all types, Lords of War, various ilks, and I just my play style. It's just too many eggs in one basket. Now I'm not saying you can't bring your big scary model, your big cool kick-ass model that you've spent money on and painted up to be really awesome, be a centerpiece of your army. I will never tell another player, hey, you can't bring that to our game. All right. But what I've seen in games where I've played is that these games remind me an awful lot of the way fantasy was when I first started playing that game in late third, early fourth edition of fantasy, where you had a tiny smattering of war machines, one or two war machines maybe, some archers in maybe a loose skirmish formation. You might have one smallish infantry or maybe a knight unit to get to your minimum threshold of troops, regiments that you needed. And then every single army seemed to be one big, scary, flying, tooled out lord on dragon or whatever. Every army basically seemed to pick the biggest, most expensive flyer they get their hands on. They put their best combat lord on top of it. They gave them the best magic items they could afford and said, there's my army. Right? And that's why it was called Hero Hammer. Right? You either won or lost with your lord. And a lot of people complained about that played fantasy back then. And I guess what I'm worried about is, are we doing that again here with the Primarchs and the Knights and the Lords of War? It's not something I'm saying is necessarily a bad thing, but I'm coming at this from the perspective of I feel like I've seen this before, and there were a lot of people that were very unhappy about it, were very upset with it. So I don't know if this is just a, hey, I remember this, a word of caution, whatever, from past experience. I don't know what it means or what I'm trying to say necessarily. I hope this is just me reading too much into it. It probably is. So feel free to ignore what I'm saying if you like. But yeah, for me, anything that's over 10% of my army in 40K, when I build my list, is something that I look at very, very hard. Right? So if I'm playing a 1,500 point game, any unit that costs more than 150 points, I'm going to ask some very hard questions about that. What are you doing? What are you designed to do? How effective are you at getting the job done? What do I have if you die to fulfill a similar role? And obviously somebody like Mortarion, right, costs 400 and some odd points. So losing him in a 4,000 point game, not that big a deal. Losing him in a 3,000 point game, still probably not that big a deal. Certainly not something you can just throw away at that point. But, okay, fine. Losing him in this game, or in a 1,500 point game, that's a third of your army, a quarter of your army. It just seems like too much to me. That's just me personally. So I don't know that I'll ever go that route. I even get a little bit iffy about taking land raiders currently, because the Godhammer, for instance, is 300 and some odd points, and yeah, it's a beast, but it's really got to pull its weight to justify its cost. Yeah, that's just sort of my take on this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's sort of my I guess, rule of thumb for my list building is, yeah, if you're under 10% of the army, you can succeed or not succeed in your role, and it's not that big a deal. And you're the kind of unit that I can use as a throwaway unit, and it's fine. But if I'm playing the game, and you cost more than that, you got to be pulling your weight. Okay. Final thought. There were a lot of really great story moments in this game. I tried to reflect some of that in the report. I hope it added something of value to you when you watch the game, that you enjoyed that a little bit when you watch the report. For the first time in really ever, I think, I mean, I've been playing this game since the end of 3rd edition 40K, or sorry, end of 2nd edition 40K. Started playing it really earnestly in 3rd. That's really when I really started building my own armies. Prior to that, I'd basically played with other people's models and store armies and things of that sort. But 3rd edition is when I started building my Space Marine army and started playing it in tournaments and things of that sort. Excuse me. And I think this is the first time in the, gosh, almost 20 years now that I've been playing this game that I'm finally getting into the story aspect. That's not just chess with dice. So those of you who've been doing the story games, the story moments to sort of motivate your games, I get where you're coming from finally. I appreciate what you've been trying to tell me for a lot of years about how those things can really make the game enjoyable and make the game memorable in a lot of respects. I'm going to try. I think this is one of the first editions since I can remember. I mean, since 3rd, really. 3rd had a lot of great battle options and scenarios and stuff in it, from what I recall. And I seem to remember that maybe not being as prevalent. Maybe it's just where I was playing the game, but I don't remember that being as big a part of the hobby experience for me. And I'm looking forward to this edition and trying to get into some of these narrative gameplay scenarios that I think the way they're set up, I recognize a lot of them from 3rd edition. That was the first thing that kind of caught my eye. But I think with the way they've set it up with the power levels and the stratagems and the command points and everything, I think there's a lot of options for how you go about organizing a game. Not everything has to be this equal points, balanced scenario in order to enjoy the game, in order to have a good time with it. So I'm going to try to bring some more battle reports that maybe aren't as evenly balanced. I haven't seen a lot of that on YouTube. Most of the games that I've seen, most of the reports that I've seen have been the sort of standard, fairly either competitive, there is only war type missions, or have been Maelstrom type missions. So I'm gonna try to get some more narrative games in. I've played a couple. I didn't do reports on them at the time for different reasons, mostly batteries dying on my cameras. So I played a really great one that I did do a report on that you've seen, or hopefully you've seen. But I'm going to try to do more of those. I think they could be a lot of fun, and try to do more unbalanced games and see how that works out. So anyways, if you've gotten this far with me, I know it's been more than an hour. I apologize for the length. Seems like everything takes longer with Maelstrom. That's just how it goes. Thanks for sticking with me this long, for listening to my ramblings. I hope you've enjoyed it, gotten something worthwhile out of my ridiculous thoughts. And if not, well, I will try to do better next time. All right. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you back here for more on the channel.